Third example is the 1979 Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, LRTAP. It covers most of Europe and North America and is often cited as a precedent for other regions. One of its most distinctive and arguably most successful features is the comprehensive Cooperative Programme for Monitoring and Evaluation of the Long-Term Transmission of Air Pollutants in Europe, EMET, jointly financed under a 1984 protocol to the Convention. Originally established by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, to determine the contribution of sulfur emissions to acid rain in Western Europe, the program was expanded under the auspices of the UN Economic Commission for Europe, UNECE, to the measurement and modeling of east-west air pollution flows, and has since become the backbone of an elaborate reporting and monitoring system for the LRTAP Convention, with a network of 164 sampling stations in 36 countries. The data so compiled also serve to verify compliance by the contracting states with their commitments under the Convention and its protocols, in conjunction with an implementation review procedure introduced in 1997. Yet, what at first glance appeared to be a perfectly straightforward instrument to measure the effectiveness of a multilateral environmental agreement by simply comparing the reported and verified annual emissions of pollutants, for example, in millions tons of sulfur dioxide, turned out to be a much more complex undertaking in practice. To everyone's apparent surprise, the successful reduction of atmospheric sulfates in Europe and North America between 1980 and 2005 is now found to explain as much as about half of the warming observed in the Arctic during the same period. Clearly an unintended environmental side effect, which as a result of the contribution of melting glaciers and ice caps to sea level rise, may in the long run have impacts well beyond the UNECE region. Moreover, merely recording the reductions in overall pollution output does not necessarily tell us much about the actual impact of a treaty on environmental quality in the states directly concerned. Let me illustrate this by two EMET maps produced by reporting and modeling work in collaboration with the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, IIASA, in Vienna. The maps show a striking difference between the geographical distribution of SO2 emissions, mainly from industrialized areas on the left-hand map with the black spots with the highest emissions, and their transboundary effects on ecosystems through acid rain, with the highest acidity, the lowest pH values shown in this graph, affecting some of the least industrialized areas, such as Scandinavia. Partly in response to this discrepancy, the focus of the LRTAP follow-up negotiations shifted from uniform flat rate percentage reductions, as the 30% protocol on sulfur dioxide in 1985, to a critical loads approach. Emission reduction targets are tailored now to the ecological vulnerability of different regions, taking into account the multiple and combined effects of multiple air pollutants in the most recent 1999 Gothenburg Protocol, as amended in 2012. The change also reflects a new emphasis on the cost efficiency of abatement strategies, which may be defined as their economic effectiveness. One of the lessons from this empirical experience is the paramount importance of interaction and mutual learning between multilateral environmental regimes in terms of both treaty design and treaty practice. Advances in international environmental law do not happen by accident, but typically by a process of diffusion of innovations, often by transnational borrowing or transplants of successful legal models, such as the concept of environmental impact assessments, EIAs, originally developed as part of the 1969 US National Environmental Policy Act, and since replicated in more than 130 other countries. In parallel to its phenomenal horizontal spread among legal systems worldwide, the EIA model also moved vertically from national environmental laws to the international level. In the field of regional seas, for example, 10 of the framework conventions adopted under UNEP auspices since the 1970s now make environmental impact assessments mandatory. So does the 1989 Basel Convention on Hazardous Wastes, the 1991 Environmental Protocol in the Antarctic Treaty, the regional 1999 UNECE ESPO Convention, and the two global 1992 Rio Conventions on climate change and biodiversity. Since 1989, environmental assessments are also required as a prerequisite for development projects funded or co-funded by the World Bank and other multilateral financial institutions under the bank's green conditionality policies. According to two recent judgments of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in 2010 and 2015, the undertaking of transboundary environmental impact assessments, I quote, may now be considered a requirement under general international law, unquote. What still ranked as non-binding soft law a generation ago has thus hardened into a new customary rule, effectively binding all states.